What's going on, everybody? And for the final book review today, this one I'm particularly excited about. I've read this a few times now, and it's an archaeology book, but it really, really gives some good insight from an archaeological historical perspective and trying to figure things out from scripture and also from ancient manuscripts and an ancient city. It is called In the Footsteps of King David, Revelations from an Ancient Biblical City. And the three authors here are Yosef Garfinkel, Saar Ganor, and Michael G. Hasel. Michael G. Hasel is a U.S. Based archaeologist who was asked to come out and was a friend of Saar and Yosef. Yeah, Saar and Yosef. Yosef is the preeminent person for the IAA, which is the Israeli Antiquities Authority, and Saar is his protege. On the back, there are two things. There's the digital reconstruction of what they think the city that they discovered looked like, based upon the ruins that they saw. And it is really something to see when you look at the city and when you look at what it looked like. There's a picture here. If you look in the top corner, you see the actual ruins of the city that was found, and then right here is the possible reconstruction based on what ruins were found of what that city may have looked like. It's very rare. It is a city that, in this book, they break down, it's called Chabet Keafa in Arabic. And they believe that this very possibly could be a city mentioned in the Bible known as Saar. Saar is Hebrew for two gates. And this is a very rare find for this city because there's a few reasons that they talk about it. One is the city was built on bedrock that was exposed. Two, it has two gates for the city, which, aside from Jerusalem, even the ancient versions of Jerusalem, for a city to have more than one gate, which people went in and out, was very rare. And three, it is a city that is dated, as far as the carbon dating, from what they discovered from the olive pits and the ash layers, which is an archaeologist's dream if you find an ash layer, because that means something is very well preserved from a certain period of time. They think that it is around late 10th, early 11th century, which means this would have dated to around the time of the kings of Israel, the first two kings, King Saul, King David, and also possibly King Solomon. Where was the city found? Well, it was found just to the top of a hill that overlooked the Elah Valley, which is where David fought the giant Goliath, hence the cover. But this city was really truly a rare find, and they really did a lot of comparisons. Which, by the way, if you noticed on the back cover, which I have a larger picture right here, this is what's called as the Chabet Keafa Astrakhan. It is a piece of clay or piece of a pottery of some kind, which people were known to use shards of pottery to write on. That's the actual size of it, by the way. And the writing, as far as they can decipher from the letters so far, and even I, with no microscope or anything, from a basic view, can tell that this is Hebrew. The only thing is to figure out what it says. However, what makes it significant is that this Hebrew Astrakhan is, again, from about late 9th or late 10th, early 11th century, which, in fact, would make this particular Astrakhan the oldest Hebrew writing ever to be found. Ever. Because before that, the earliest that they had found were two metal scrolls in a tomb, which is about late 6th century BC, which would have been late 500, maybe 596 or so BC, with the Aaronic blessing, with the high priestly blessing on a silver scroll in its family tomb, prior to this ostracon. This ostracon changes all that. Also, the design of the city, the altars that were found, one of the ways that they say that they figured out that this site was ancient Israelite and not something else is because a couple things. One, there were no pig bones or any unclean bones of any unclean animal that is referred to in Torah found at this site, which means this was not Philistine, because this was close to what was known as the border with Philistia, or what's known today, modern times, as the territory of Gaza, or the Gaza Strip, which was ancient Philistia. Now, there were also some altars that were found at this site as well. Now, normally an altar of a pagan city had deities and what have you, and some of which were, in this region, were Baal, Ashtoreth, or Asherah, and so on. However, the altars that were found at She'ar Re'im, or the altars that were found at Chobet Keafa, had no figurines at all. And these, the altars that were found at this particular site really kind of flip the design of what the Temple of Solomon could have possibly looked like. Based on what they found at this site, as well as a couple of others in comparison, this is a rendering and a drawing right here by Roy Albeg, who is part of the team, and he thinks that based upon their research, possibly, they don't know for sure, but based on the archaeology, they think that this right here could possibly be what Solomon's temple may have looked like, which may be a lot smaller than some people realize, because if you look at it, it's basically only 3.5, maybe 4 stories tall, which might not seem really big today, but in the ancient world, a 3-4 story building, that is huge. So, why do I continue to bring this book up and go into detail? Because I think that, and this is where I get on my soapbox for a little bit, I think one of the biggest disservices that has been done to the church is that they have left historical cultural context, in this case, Middle Eastern, ancient Middle Eastern or Near Eastern historical cultural context, out of the study of these ancient scriptures, which I think was a bad move for whatever reason. I don't know if it's anti-Semitism. I don't know if it was because people thought it wasn't relevant. I don't know if people thought that they were going to be scared that history was going to change how they viewed scripture, or how people were traditionally taught in many denominational circles. I will say this as a Messianic Jew, and also as someone who studied historian when I was at university. I think that books like this are very, very important if you want to get context of the good book from an actual historical, cultural context, where you can actually see what the city looks like, how it was designed, what some of the local customs may have been, what they may or may have not traded. And you still need scripture, because in the Jewish community, the Old Testament is not just considered a religious book. It's considered, and I say this as a Jew, it's part of, or someone who's half Jewish, it's considered part of our history as well. It's not just a bunch of rules. It's not just a bunch of beliefs. This is how Israel, the people of Israel, or the Jews came into it, or the Hebrews came into existence. And to understand the historical cultural context of that, I think, would go a long way. Very much would recommend this book. It's not too old. I only think that it came out not very long ago at all. 2018. So only 3 years old as of this year. Worth every penny. This is actually the first English translation. There were a few translations, the first one being in Hebrew, and then a couple other translations. This is the first English translation. Hopefully there will be more as they continue, because as of the translating of this book, there was still a lot to look into. There was still a lot that they were trying to figure out with regards to the city and what was there. But if you're someone like me and you are into, history, and you're into understanding the historical cultural context of different periods of time, get your history books, get your ancient history books, get your medieval history books, whatever period of history you're interested in, and do your due diligence. Do your due diligence. Make sure you are researching. Make sure that you are always in a humble attitude of the reality of your mind. And what I mean by that is that understand that you always have more to learn. I know I always have more to learn. I always have more to learn. That's why I'm always getting books. That's why I'm a bookworm. That's why I'm always researching, always learning, always growing. I say that in this third video to really express to people, please, pick up your books. Not just Kindle. I'm not going to knock anybody who just gets digital books, but me, I personally like a book that I could hold in my hand, and that even if, God forbid, I lose the internet or I lose my e-Kindle or whatever, I still have my hardcover books that I can still pick up and I can still read them and I can still enjoy them, especially without the blue light. So that's my last book review for today. Again, do your due diligence, do your homework, research, always be willing to learn, always be willing to grow, always be willing to look at things objectively, independently, and always with a critical eye. That's my last video for today. Hope you all enjoyed this series, and hope you all continue to enjoy it and continue to read and continue to search on. Peace.